You've seen this budget. They promised big spending. They got it. This is a matter of confidence, could lead to a federal election. You've seen it. Will you support it?
We're going to be talking about it this week, proposing some amendments, but I'm really disappointed out of the gate, Evan. There's lots of risky debt in the future and no plan for economic activity. In fact, it will actually hurt economic activity in some parts of the country, some sectors. We need every sector firing. We need people back to work. We need a plan to be competitive again. And this had no plan and lots of debt on our kids' shoulders.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Just in terms of their deficit, they're alleging that once they have this $354.2 billion in 2021, within 5 years they're down to $30 billion, pre-COVID levels. What do you make of that? Do you buy those numbers?
I don't buy anything from Mr. Trudeau. Remember, he said originally he'd never run a deficit more than $10 billion. Getting back to $30 billion is back to where he was pre-COVID. He had $100 billion of debt before the crisis, Evan, and with no plan for jobs, no real plan to save small business, a couple of months of Band-Aid solutions in a time where we're seeing variants and Canada go into the worst wave of this pandemic, the third wave, because he didn't secure vaccines. So incredibly disappointed, massive spending, no focus, big risks for the future of our country. It's a big risk.
What's the risk? Let's talk. The centerpiece is going to be childcare. They've promised this, I think, since I was a kid, and probably you were a kid. Now she's saying $30 billion over 5 years, then it actually goes up. That's real money, sir. Childcare, they say, has an economic balance, that it drives mainly women, but women and men, into the workforce, and that actually has a job multiplier effect. They say that's a good investment. What do you make of the childcare investment?
Well, it's real money, a lot of money, no real plan, Evan. And as you said, they've promised this 3 times before. It seems like they didn't even consult the provinces. Are they going to have conditions on Quebec, which has been running their own program for many years? How many places do they think they will create? How do they address the needs of suburban or rural voters and families? This is something that they promised before and never delivered, and it's not going to help most families. So we're going to propose smarter ideas here, Evan. I think we need to help parents. We need to get everyone back working, but they're actually going to put jobs at risk in large sectors of the economy. So maybe their plan is people won't need childcare because they won't be working.
Right. Okay, again, $6 billion a year. They say they're going to consult. It is provincial jurisdiction. They say they're going to consult with the provinces over the next 12 and 18 months to figure it out. Every province will be different. I think the only string that I see attached here, Mr. O'Toole, is that you got to use it for childcare. You can't dump it into general revenues and put it to something else. What do you make about the green infrastructure, the innovation fund that they're going to boost that all sorts of industries are going to be able to get grants, loans, and subsidies to be able to make the transition? They believe that is an investment, again, I'm using their words here, as we dig through this 700-page document, to invest in the future. What do you make of that? There's billions in that as well.
There's billions sprinkled around almost like they're planning for an election, but not actually planning the future of our economy. I mean, you know that we launched our climate change plan last week with real investments in small modular reactors, in hydrogen and carbon capture, utilization and sequestration. We need to use those technologies in effective ways, not sprinkle billions all over for no impact whatsoever. So as I said, this was a lot of money,
to be fair on the
but no plan.
Just on the sprinkle, I mean, I get the politics of all this. This is $17 billion of new spending on green technology. They had just done 15. That's not a sprinkle. That's real dollars. I mean, it's hard to pretend that that's just, getting you a little damp. That soaks a lot of things in money. Now, the question is, do they get bang for their buck is a different story, but those are real numbers.
And do they get emissions down? That's what's not clear either. What we specified in our plan last week were all huge areas to get emissions down while allowing the resource sector to produce and have tens of thousands of people work in that sector. They seem to be once again attacking core sector of our economy. And the weight of debt they're putting on the shoulders of our kids, Evan, if we see inflation, if we see interest rates change in a few years, Mr. Trudeau seems to have no concern that he's putting at risk the prosperity of this country based on, you know, another $500 billion worth of debt. It is very reckless to not have a plan for jobs, but to just have deficits as far as the eye can see. That's not leadership.
Just two things on that. I know that your plan committed again to hit a 30% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. This new budget, they say, will have a 36% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. So they're actually upping the targets on that. Just on that last point about job creation. They are investing in a lot of these programs as extra $100 billion in surplus. And again, their projections here, and we got to crunch the numbers, is despite the fact that the economy is already actually slingshotting back, there has been actually a remarkable growth here, even despite the pandemic. They say that they still need to spend it. Are you saying that you would not have spent that extra money on these programs and let the economy kind of bounce back as it has done right now?
Well, some of the economy is bouncing back, and we have to focus where it's not. They acknowledge between 500,000 and 1 million jobs are lost or underserved. You know, people have seen wages dramatically cut. That needs to be where the attention goes so that people can get back working, and then we can get a plan to get back into balance, Evan. That's what we've been proposing with our recovery plan for Canada, a serious plan to get jobs and the budget under control. Mr. Trudeau seems to be okay not helping large sectors, no real plan for small business, a couple of plans for a few months in terms of new hires for jobs. We'll be having variants and we'll be having COVID for the next year because we're so slow on the vaccines. We'll see that risk there in our economy. So we need something much more substantive in creating jobs. And it seems to me that Mr. Trudeau has made this budget more about his election chances than really actually addressing the long-term prosperity of the country.
Just real quick, tax, not a lot of revenue here. They say they're relying on growth for revenue. There is a tax on the digital giants, as it were, a 3% tax on that. And there's a tax on luxury boats, cars, and planes on that. But no overall wealth tax. What do you make on the tax on the digital giants? Are you in support of that?
I think we have to have a way to level the playing field for Canadian creators and content. I've also said we have to look at the modern digital landscape and instead of bailing out who Ottawa chooses, make the playing field much more fair. So we are looking at a number of proposals to address that and the unfairness of the web giants. So there is a recognition that something needs to be done, but on several bills they've promised for months to bring something to Parliament and they haven't.
Mr. O'Toole, okay, so fair to say you're going to make some amendments, but this does not look like a thumbs-up review so far. Not that I'm shockingly surprised about that, but I always appreciate your time, and we'll find out how your party votes on it. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Evan.